Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I want you to pause for just a moment, not to look around, not to check your phone, not even to listen with your ears, but to feel with your spirit. There is a stirring in the atmosphere. There is a shifting that's happening beyond what you can see, beyond what you can calculate or control. And I've come to tell you something that might sound bold, even audacious. God is about to shock you with favor. Now I know those are strong words, and you might be thinking, you don't know what I've been going through. You don't know how long I've been praying. You don't know the nights I've cried, the dreams I've buried, the opportunities I've missed, the people I've lost, the doors that were slammed in my face. You're right, I don't know. But I know something bigger. I know that the God we serve is not limited by our timelines. He's not held back by our disappointments. He's not discouraged by our doubts. He is still the God of sudden breakthroughs, of unexpected blessings, of divine reversals. He is still the God who can turn mourning into dancing, ashes into beauty, and pain into purpose. Sometimes favor doesn't come wrapped in celebration. Sometimes it comes wrapped in confusion. You think things are falling apart, but really they're falling into place. The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the door that didn't open. Maybe those weren't rejections. Maybe they were redirections. Maybe they were God's way of clearing the path for something so much better. Maybe they were setting the stage for the kind of favor that doesn't just bless you, it shocks you. Because when God decides to favor you, He doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't check with your past. He doesn't look at your resume or consult your critics. Favor is not about being qualified, it's about being chosen. Have you ever seen someone walk into a season so blessed, so full of peace and provision and purpose, that it made people ask, how did that happen? That's what shocking favor looks like. It doesn't make sense. It can't be explained by logic. It defies human expectation. And let me tell you this. You're next. Yes, you. The one who's been overlooked. The one who's been struggling in silence. The one who's been faithful, but frustrated, diligent, but discouraged. God has seen every seed you've sown, every tear you've cried, every time you kept believing when it would have been easier to quit, and He's about to reward you in a way that only He can. I'm not talking about little blessings, the kind you can plan for or predict. I'm talking about overflow. I'm talking about pressed down, shaken together, and running over. I'm talking about doors you didn't knock on opening wide. I'm talking about opportunities finding you. I'm talking about healing coming to places you thought were permanently broken. I'm talking about peace that doesn't even make sense, showing up in the middle of the storm. That's shocking favor. That's the kind of move only God can orchestrate. But here's the thing. Shocking favor often follows hidden obedience. It doesn't always happen when the crowd is watching. It happens when you keep sowing in the dark. When you keep loving the unlovable, when you keep forgiving the unforgivable, when you stay faithful in the wilderness. It happens when you say yes to God, when no one else understands your decision. It happens when you choose integrity over popularity, character over comfort, obedience over opportunity. That's when heaven starts to take notice. That's when the scales tip in your favor. That's when God says, now you're ready. I don't know what you've been walking through, but I know this. It hasn't been in vain. But waste nothing. Not your pain, not your process, not even your past. Sometimes the most powerful favor comes after the most painful seasons. Think about Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in prison. Yet in one day, God elevated him to second in command over all of Egypt. That's shocking favor. That's the kind of divine reversal that nobody saw coming. One moment he was in chains, the next he was in charge. Or consider Ruth, a widow from a foreign land with no status, no resources, and no real prospects. She was just trying to survive, picking up leftover grain in the fields. But favor found her. And not just any favor, redeeming favor. She married Boaz, became part of the lineage of King David, and ultimately the bloodline of Jesus Christ Himself. That's not luck. That's divine strategy. That's shocking favor. And what about Esther, an orphan raised by her cousin living in exile? She wasn't looking for a crown, she was just trying to survive. But favor found her too. She was positioned in the palace, not just for her comfort, but for her calling. Her favor didn't just elevate her, it saved an entire nation. That's what shocking favor does. It's not just about blessing you, it's about using you as a vessel for something bigger than yourself. You might feel like your life has been on pause. Like everyone else is moving forward, and you're stuck in the same place, praying the same prayers, facing the same battles. But let me tell you something, God is not late. He's not ignoring you. He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. He's setting you up for something that's going to exceed your expectations. He's aligning the right people, the right timing, the right doors. And when it happens, it's not going to be a slow drip, it's going to be a flood. But favor doesn't just bless you, it will stretch you. It will call you out of your comfort zone. It will challenge your identity, your insecurities, your past limitations. Because you can't walk in shocking favor with a survival mindset. You can't receive more while clinging to the fear of lack. You have to make room in your thinking, in your faith, in your expectations. You have to start walking like you're favored, speaking like you're favored, living like you know God has already gone ahead of you. Favor doesn't always look like a straight line. Sometimes it looks like delays, detours, and even disappointments. But those are not signs that God has forgotten you. They are signs that He's orchestrating something bigger behind the scenes. What if the delay is actually protection? What if the detour is actually direction? What if the thing you thought was a setback is really a setup? You see, God is not limited by time. He can restore years. He can accelerate what should take decades and make it happen in a moment. You don't need everyone to approve you. You just need one touch from God. One yes from heaven can change everything. And when that yes comes, it's going to shock you. It's going to silence every doubt. It's going to shut the mouths of every critic. It's going to confirm that God was working even when you couldn't see it. I'm telling you today, not just hoping, not just wishing, but declaring that your season is shifting. Your time is coming. The tables are turning. The tears you cried in private are about to produce public testimony. The shame you carried is about to be covered in glory. The battle you've been fighting is about to end in victory. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are favored. And that favor is about to manifest in ways that shock even you. So don't give up now. Don't shrink back. Don't let your current condition make you doubt your coming breakthrough. Stand firm. Keep praying. Keep sowing. Keep worshiping. Keep believing. Because when the favor of God hits your life, it doesn't come quietly. It comes like a storm, uncontainable, undeniable, and unstoppable. It comes with evidence. It comes with increase. It comes with purpose. God is about to do something in your life that no person, no circumstance, no enemy can stop. He's about to flip the script. He's about to open doors you didn't even know existed. He's about to restore what the enemy tried to steal. He's about to make you the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. He's about to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it around for good. He's about to take your name from overlooked to honored, from forgotten to favored. So get ready. Get your heart ready. Get your faith ready. Get your house ready. Because when favor comes, it won't give you time to prepare. It'll happen suddenly. It'll happen swiftly. It'll happen in such a way that you'll look back and say, only God, not your resume, not your network, not your effort, just God. Pure favor. And when it happens, don't forget to testify. Don't forget to give Him glory. Don't shrink back into silence. Let your life be a billboard of His goodness. Let your breakthrough be someone else's blueprint. Let your story inspire someone who's still in the middle of their struggle. God's favor is one of the most powerful forces a person can experience, and yet it is often the most misunderstood. Many people assume that blessings from God are based strictly on performance, on how good or holy someone is, or on how perfectly they follow religious rules. But divine favor doesn't always work that way. It doesn't follow human logic. It doesn't always show up in the life of the person who seems the most qualified. In fact, more often than not, favor comes suddenly and unexpectedly. It shows up in moments and in ways that no one saw coming. It's not something you can plan for, calculate, or earn. It is a divine decision made by God, completely based on His will, His wisdom, and His grace. When God chooses to favor someone, it often confuses those around them. People will ask, why them? Or how did that happen? They'll look at your background, your past, your flaws, and your failures, and it won't add up. That's exactly the point. God's favor isn't about human qualifications. It's about divine purpose. He doesn't choose the most obvious candidate. He chooses the willing, the humble, the overlooked, and sometimes the least expected. His favor lands on people others counted out. It lands on people who don't have the right last name, the right education, or the right connections. Why? Because when God does it this way, no one can take the credit. The only explanation is His. Throughout Scripture, we see countless examples of this kind of unexplainable favor. Joseph was a young dreamer who was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. By all accounts, his life should have ended in obscurity and pain. But in a single day, God elevated him from a prison cell to the palace, making him second in command over all of Egypt. That's favor. That's divine intervention that no one could have predicted. It wasn't because Joseph had political influence or wealth. He had none of that. It was because the hand of God was on him. Another example is David. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, David wasn't even invited to the ceremony. His own father didn't think he was worth considering. He was out in the fields, tending sheep, forgotten by his family. Yet it was David, the least likely candidate, whom God chose. While others saw a shepherd boy, God saw a king. That's what favor does. It sees what no one else sees. It chooses when no one else would. And it lifts people from obscurity into destiny in a way that shocks the system. You may feel like you've been overlooked, like you've been passed by, like nothing is changing. But when God's favor hits your life, it won't come gradually. It will come suddenly. It will come in such a way that even you won't understand how it happened so fast. One door will open. There are times in life when everything seems still, stagnant, or even broken. You pray, you believe, you press forward, but nothing seems to change. Doors close, relationships fall apart, opportunities slip through your fingers. It's easy in these moments to question God, to wonder if you've been forgotten, if your prayers are hitting a ceiling, or if you've somehow missed your moment. But what you must understand is that pain and delay are not punishments, they are preparation. They are often the soil in which God plants the seeds of His greatest favor. Throughout Scripture and life we see a pattern. Before promotion comes a process. Before breakthrough comes a battle. Before the glory comes the grinding. What you interpret as delay is often divine development. God isn't just interested in giving you something great. He wants to prepare you to carry it well. If you receive favor before your character is ready, what was meant to bless you can break you. So He takes you through seasons that don't feel like favor at all. Seasons of testing. Seasons where your obedience costs you. Seasons where your faith must be lived, not just spoken. Think about Joseph. He had a dream from God at a young age. A dream that he would lead and that others would bow before him. But almost immediately after receiving that dream, his life seemed to move in the opposite direction. He was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned and forgotten. To the natural eye, it looked like a life marked by pain and delay. But God was orchestrating every step. Each painful stop along the way was not a detour, it was training. In the prison, Joseph learned to lead. In slavery, he learned stewardship. In betrayal, he learned forgiveness. And when the time was right, when the preparation was complete, he was elevated to a position of power that saved nations. The same principle applies to your life. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to. In fact, the longer the delay, the greater the impact. God is building something that will last. He's refining you in the fire, so you can stand in the place of favor without crumbling under its weight. The pain you're enduring now may be the very thing that qualifies you for what's coming next. But here's what makes this process even more challenging. It often happens in secret. No applause, no recognition, just quiet obedience. You forgive when it hurts. You serve when it's inconvenient. You sow when you don't see a harvest. And it can feel like no one sees or cares. But God does. He sees every act of faithfulness. He counts every tear. He records every time you choose to keep believing. And He promises that none of it is in vain. Favor isn't just about sudden blessings. It's about divine timing. It's about God waiting until everything is aligned, your heart, your environment, your assignment. And when that moment comes, He doesn't ease you into favor. He shocks you with it. Suddenly, what was delayed is delivered. What was broken is restored. What was painful begins to make sense. And you'll realize that God never forgot you. He was just preparing you for something bigger than you imagined. So don't despise the delay. Don't curse the process. Don't give up in the pain, because the same God who allowed the wait is the same God who will release the favor. And when He does, it will come with such power, such clarity, and such undeniable grace that you'll know every moment of the struggle was worth it. When we talk about God's favor, it's easy to imagine it solely as personal gain, open doors, miraculous provision, healing, or success. And while favor certainly brings blessing, it's so much deeper than just something meant to make your life easier or more comfortable. True favor from God is never just about you. It's about what God wants to do through you. When God shows you favor, He's not just handing you a blessing, He's giving you an assignment. Look closely at the stories of people who walk in undeniable favor. Take Esther, for example. She was chosen to be queen not just to enjoy life in the palace, but to intercede for her people and save an entire nation from destruction. Her favor put her in a position of influence, but it came with a heavy responsibility. She had to risk her own life to fulfill the very reason God placed her where He did. Her favor wasn't random, it was connected to purpose. The same is true for Ruth. Her journey was marked by loss and hardship, yet she remained loyal, humble, and obedient. God favored her through divine alignment with Boaz, but it wasn't just for her benefit. She became part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. Her favor carried generational impact. What seemed like a simple blessing, a marriage, a new life, was actually part of a much bigger plan. Ruth's life reminds us that favor often comes to those who are faithful in obscurity, and when it arrives, it carries divine purpose far beyond the individual. Joseph's story may be the clearest example of how favor is tied to purpose. From the outside, it looked like Joseph's favor only benefited him when he rose to power in Egypt. But God's hand on Joseph's life was always about more than his personal success. His rise to power was the vehicle through which countless lives were saved during a famine, including the very brothers who betrayed him. Joseph understood this. When he confronted his brothers years later, he didn't seek revenge. Instead, he said, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good, to save many lives." That's purpose-driven favor. God doesn't waste favor on selfish ambition. If you're asking for favor, you must also be ready for responsibility. He blesses you to be a blessing. He elevates you to bring others with you. He opens doors for you to serve, speak life, restore, protect, and lift others. Favor is not about spotlight, it's about stewardship. And here's the powerful truth. When you align yourself with God's purpose, favor will follow. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to manipulate circumstances or people. When your heart is fixed on serving God and loving others, He will position you exactly where you need to be. His favor will take you places that your resume never could. But again, not just for you. He's looking for vessels, not just recipients. So if you're praying for favor, also pray for clarity of purpose. Ask God, what do you want to accomplish through my life? When you live with that question at the center of your walk with God, you become someone He can trust with more influence, more resources, more wisdom, more opportunity, because He knows you won't hoard it, you'll multiply it for His glory. In the end, the greatest measure of favor is not how much you've gained, but how many lives have been touched through you. Blessing without purpose fades quickly, but favor rooted in God's purpose creates a ripple effect that echoes into eternity. So yes, expect God to bless you, to lift you, to open impossible doors. But more than that, be ready to walk out the purpose that His favor is designed to fulfill. There's something uniquely difficult about waiting on God. We live in a world that values speed, quick results, instant gratification, immediate answers. But God doesn't operate on human schedules. His timing is often mysterious, sometimes confusing, and almost always slower than what we would prefer. And yet, His timing is perfect. Not just good, not just reasonable, perfect. Even when it feels painfully late, even when we're tempted to believe He's forgotten, God is quietly working behind the scenes, aligning every detail to bring about something greater than we imagined. Waiting is never easy, especially when we're praying, obeying, doing everything we know to do, and still the doors don't open, still the healing doesn't come, still the promise hasn't been fulfilled. It can feel like time is slipping away, like opportunities are passing us by, like we've missed something important. But what we call delay, God often calls preparation. He's not just concerned with what He's going to do for you, He's concerned with who you're becoming in the process. Because what good is a blessing if you're not ready to carry it? Throughout the Bible, we see this principle play out again and again. Abraham was promised a son, but he had to wait decades before Isaac was born. In that waiting, God was not stalling. He was building Abraham's faith, refining his trust. When the promise was finally fulfilled, it came with a depth of understanding and appreciation that only time could have produced. Consider David. He was anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, but it took years before he actually sat on the throne. In those years, he was hunted, betrayed, and forced into exile. Was he forgotten? No. God was training him in the cave, forming his character in obscurity, preparing him for the weight of leadership. If David had taken the throne too soon, without the process, he wouldn't have had the depth or maturity to lead well. The delay was divine. Or look at Jesus himself. He waited 30 years before beginning his public ministry, the Son of God. When we talk about favor, especially the kind that shocks and elevates, it's easy to desire it without preparing for it. But the truth is, God's favor doesn't just land anywhere. It finds a heart that's ready, a mindset that's aligned, and a life that's positioned to receive. Before favor shows up on the outside, it begins on the inside. You must be spiritually ready to receive what you're praying for. Spiritual readiness means shifting your thinking from scarcity to faith. Too often, we live as though we're limited by our background, our finances, our past mistakes, or our lack of connections. We pray for big things but expect little results. We hope for breakthroughs, but brace for disappointment. That's not how someone who walks in favor thinks. God isn't moved by fear or insecurity. He responds to faith. To be ready for favor, you have to believe not only that God is able, but that He is willing. You have to believe that His promises are not just for others, but for you. That He doesn't show favoritism, but He does show favor to those who walk in faith and obedience. You cannot carry favor with a defeated spirit. You must speak differently, pray differently, and see yourself through the lens of heaven. When you know you're favored, you stop apologizing for believing in more. You stop shrinking to fit others' comfort zones. You stop settling for survival when you were created to thrive. Spiritual readiness means being bold in your belief, rooted in truth and expectant of God's goodness, not in arrogance, but in confidence that comes from knowing who your Father is. This readiness also requires that you let go of old mindsets. Sometimes what blocks favor is not the enemy, it's our own thinking. We hold on to bitterness, shame, or unworthiness. We disqualify ourselves from what God has already qualified us for. We cling to past failures and make them our identity. But favor demands that you see yourself the way God sees you. Redeemed, chosen, set apart. That shift is vital. If you don't believe you're worthy of receiving, you'll either miss the opportunity or mishandle the blessing when it comes. Being spiritually ready also means walking in obedience before the blessing shows up. Favor isn't just about praying and waiting. It's about preparing. Are you sowing seeds where God has told you to sow? Are you serving faithfully in small places? Are you honoring Him in your decisions, even when there's no reward in sight? God pays attention to faithfulness. He watches how you steward the mundane before He trusts you with the miraculous. You also have to make room emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Sometimes we ask God for more, but our hands are too full of things He never intended us to carry. Old relationships, toxic habits, fear-based decisions, comparison. These things clutter our spirits. And God, being the wise Father He is, will not pour new wine into old wineskins. He'll wait until you're ready, until you've cleared out the clutter, until your heart is open enough to carry the weight of what He wants to give. Finally, you must learn to praise before you see it. That's a sign of spiritual maturity and readiness. Anyone can praise after the door opens, but those who are truly ready for favor will worship while they wait. They'll speak life while nothing looks alive. They'll declare God's faithfulness even when things seem delayed. That kind of faith draws the attention of heaven. That kind of posture invites sudden, shocking favor. So don't just pray for God to bless you, prepare for it. Start living like favor is already on its way. Walk into rooms with quiet confidence. Approach decisions with clarity. Treat every day as a divine setup, because when your spirit is aligned with God's truth, when your mind is renewed and your heart is expectant, favor has no choice but to find you. And when it does, you'll be ready not just to receive it, but to carry it with purpose and power. There's something powerful about a life transformed by favor. When God moves in your life, when He opens doors that no man can shut, when He brings you through storms you thought would break you, when He answers prayers that felt long forgotten, it doesn't end with you. What God does in your life is meant to ripple outward, to reach others, to become a living, breathing testimony of His faithfulness. Your story becomes someone else's reminder that God is still working miracles, still making a way, still keeping His promises. So many people are walking through silent battles. They're smiling on the outside, but fighting discouragement, waiting on breakthroughs, wondering if God hears them. And while they might not always listen to a sermon or read a scripture in that moment, they will listen to you. They'll watch how you live. They'll pay attention to how you endured. Your journey, your breakthrough, your favor, it's not just a blessing, it's a message. And the message is clear: if God did it for you, He can do it for them too. Testimonies are not reserved for people with perfect lives. In fact, the most powerful testimonies often come from the messiest, most broken places, places where only God could have brought redemption. That's what makes them real. That's what makes them undeniable. When others see that you survived the divorce, beat the illness, overcame the loss, endured the setback and still rose, still believed, still thrived, they'll know it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was favor, and favor like that leaves a mark. When you tell your story, you shine a light in someone else's darkness. You remind them that waiting doesn't mean denial. You let them know that tears are not wasted, that silence is not absence, and that pain is not the end of the story. Your testimony becomes a bridge between their struggle and their faith. It lifts their head when they're too tired to pray. It breathes hope when all they feel is heaviness. But here's the key. You have to be willing to share it. Sometimes after the breakthrough, we want to move on and forget the struggle. We want to enjoy the blessing and leave the pain behind. But God didn't just bring you out for your comfort. He brought you out for His glory. And that glory is revealed when you open your mouth and say, "Let me tell you what God did. Let me show you where I was and where I am now. Let me show you what favor looks like." You don't need a platform or a microphone to share your testimony. You just need honesty. You just need a heart that's willing to be real about the journey, whether it's to your children, your co-workers, your church, or even one person going through what you came out of. Your words matter. Your story matters. Even more, your testimony silences the enemy. Every time you speak of God's faithfulness, you expose the lies the enemy told you while you were in the valley. Lies like, "You'll never make it. God has forgotten you. This is how it ends." But your life says otherwise. Your favor says otherwise. You made it. You endured. You came out stronger, wiser, and more rooted in God than ever before. So don't hide what God has done for you. Don't shrink back from your story. There is someone right now who needs to hear that healing is possible, that restoration is real, that God does show up even if it takes time. That favor is not just for the special few, it's for anyone willing to believe, to endure, to stay faithful. Your testimony is proof that God is still in the business of transformation. It's living evidence that He works all things together for good. And when others see your life, when they hear what you've overcome, they'll see God. And that's the point. Favor was never meant to end with you. It was always meant to point people to Him.